Greetings, friends. Good morning. It's the 12th of January, first day. That's what the Quakers came up with when they went through a chapter of not wanting any, I guess, Latin Greek influence or something. It was the Protestant Reformation. So instead of Sunday and Moon Day or Monday, sounded, quote, pagan. I don't know. They numbered the days. I guess that was sounded rational or something. First day, second day, third day. It works. Nowadays, it's kind of tongue in cheek when a Quaker says first day. It's kind of an insider jargon, you could say. And using thee and thou like they used to. It used to be, you know, how in Spanish we have like usted and tú. It's like there's different ways to address someone. And the inflection that Quakers were giving back then in the 1600s was somehow less inflected. It was like there's like a cliche that you can always tell where someone is in the pecking order in Japan by how they inflect their language, and it's like ooh, anthropological. But the English is the same way, or at least it has been. It was more that way, and Quakers kind of chipped away at and eroded some of the class distinctions. Continuing from my no race, no class, you got to chip away at these things once they're programmed and ingrained. You get this meme virus that says I'm this or that mix of races. You've got that. Like it's different from Ancestry.com, which is more like geographical in its treatment, which makes a lot of sense. But to like boil it all down that we all came from the Tower of Babel, which is what they're saying, right? Because Noah had kids, and like words like Semite or son of like Sem or Shem, and it's bottlenecking of the human species. Anyway, I'm talking about some previous videos, rather recent ones, where I get into this whole semantics of race and racism, and I think that's apropos of the whole idea of a namespace, which is big here in our Python cult. Like if I do Python right now here in the screen, I just say Python. Notice I am using 3.8, which is in terms of January 12th, 2020, that's a pretty new one, right? It's just coming out. It's 3.8.0 that I have. This is from November 6th, though, so it's not that new. So it's from last year, but most people are not using 3.8 in the current timeline. So here I can say import this, and it says namespaces are one honking great idea. Let's do more of those. Namespaces? Well, that's kind of like, a system, like a way of thinking, an ideology. If you have like a namespace, that's like the frequency that you think at. It's like your belief system, your system, my system. Okay, and then there's like Quaker system, right? So different jargons, you could say, languages, dialects, shop talks. And speaking of shop talks, here we have volumes of different polyhedrons. And we're creating them or expressing them in terms of S modules scaled phi up and phi down. And I actually use the Greek letter phi there in my source code. And you can get complaints from some versions of the interpreter, like 2.7, unless you declare that your source code is UTF-8. Otherwise, it's assumed to be ASCII. But these days, the default is UTF-8, so you don't have to say. Now, what do I mean by UTF-8? We can go back to talking about string literals a little bit, but really it's about Unicode that we're talking about, and how you specify at the top of a Python source code file what the encoding is. Because when it comes across strings, it has to know, hey, what is this? What's the encoding behind this text here? And you tell it, well, it's Unicode, right? There's a link here to absolute minimum every software developer should know about Unicode. That's I think a pretty famous like essay, which I just clicked on, and it's taking us time. Okay, so this is the kind of lore that you read in that you read if you're in this kind of subculture. Remember last video, subculture, recent video? So in this table here, I'm just going to show you a 3.8 trick that we have. I'm printing out the volumes that I'm computing. So I get phi, and then I scale up the S module, scale it down. I'm using phi to the third power in these cases. And here I compute the volume of two polyhedra. The cube octahedron, which is, we can just show you that. So here's the cube octahedron. We say this has volume 20. The edges are 2R or 1D. And we squish it down a little bit, and now it stops at the icosahedron position. This is like 18.51 ... Now at the icosahedron position, you have a dual of it. If you look at my Genesis video, so-called, in Synergetics 101, we just pick up the platonics and show how they're all duals of each other, right? They come in pairs. Now there are 5 of them, but the tetrahedron is self-dual. So it's almost like 3 pairs, 6 total, with the tetrahedron self-dual. So it's when you take the icosahedron I just showed you and its dual and intersect them to create a rhombic tricontahedron, that's what we call the super RT. Now by we, that's not jargon that's totally caught on. It's not in the Synergetics published volumes. It's to distinguish it from some other rhombic tricontahedra in the same concentric hierarchy. Because when we do the concentric hierarchy, we actually repeat different volumes at different, we can have like for example, the cube octahedron. If you have all the edges, take 1/2 of all these edges, and let's see, looking for my little guy. There it is. So you put this one inside with half the edges, then the volume of this little one in the middle is going to have a volume of 2.5, right? So 5 and 2.5. And I'm sorry, 20 and 2.5. The outer one has a volume of 20. It's one of the rhombic tricontahedrons that has volume 5. The one made of 120 T modules. So I'm computing those volumes, T modules, S modules, and E modules. Do I actually get the T module in this one? Let's just run this code, remind ourselves of what the output is, and then I will talk just a short time about the weird anomalous output for the super RT and the cube octa, how I got that. But before I get to that, let's just scroll down, and yeah, there's the T module. So that's rounded, like we're only getting out a certain number of decimals, but it's really 1/24th. And the S modules, phi up, phi down, those kind of things. That's why there's multiple S modules, because we're going phi up, phi down. Same with the E modules. Okay, and so we print all that stuff out. Now the anomalous output, this is where I'm testing a feature of 3.8, is here on lines 48, 49. I'm converting to format strings, which means I no longer need to feed this string its dot format method. I don't need to feed the dot format method of the string. I just put the prefix F in front of the string, and that says, okay, we're going to treat this stuff inside with, anytime we find curly braces, we're going to use just a format string trick. But we're going to get our values, like for super RT and for cube octa, from the surrounding environment. So the fact that I've defined those two on lines 34, 35 is what makes them available to me on lines 48, 49. And I can also still talk about how many total decimal places I want. Like I want a field that's 10 wide with 6 decimals. And I can also here put a little equal sign. Now this is what's new in Python 3.8. Just this equal sign as an option means I don't need to repeat this text. I can just, this can double as both the text on the left and the value on the right. So when I print it out down below, I'm just using superRT equals as sort of the default left side output. Like it's going to say, by left side I mean this is actual string, not the value. But then I use superRT and ch.py as values, and that's what fills in everything after the colon. Okay, the format string is completed by fill in, just because of the prefix f. And the equal sign is what says you can write this. See, let's take the equal sign out and show you the change. So equal signs just went away. Save it. Go down here, run it, and scroll up a bit. See what the change was. See the words superRT and ch.py have disappeared from the left side. They're no longer strings, showing up as strings. So it's the shorthand of being able to put a little bit of an equal sign right there. And that says, okay, now on the left, we want you to actually write this and then fill it in according to what's in the format string, like that. So that's just, if you listen to other commentators, there's always annotations and there's commentary on all features of Python, the word on the street. And most people are saying, this is good for debugging. This is good for just, getting some quick printouts and remembering what the variables are without having to go to a lot of work to get that to print. So it's working. It's a 3.8 feature. Proves I'm using 3.8, and we'll take it on to the next level in a future video.